You're not calling in anything. You are a vessel for this energy to come through you, which is an important point. That is the very difference between a Reiki healing and a more spiritual healing.
Hello and welcome to Holistic Circle Podcast, Spiritual Conversation. My name is Philipp Kobald. We are reaching out to people who are passionate about spreading light, love, and joy. And here from outside of London, Sharon Chapman. Hello, Sharon.
Hello, Philip. Yeah, I'm located in St. Albans, which is in Hertfordshire in the UK. Yeah, yeah.
And again, I did not manage to pronounce it, so I said outside of London.
Well, that is the location. Yeah, yeah.
Wonderful. Okay. I see you're wearing a bit of a bole thing. So is it phrasing or is it okay for the
Um,
season?
it's 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 January, so to be expected. You're wearing short sleeves and you're in Europe, so I don't know what's going on there. What's happening? Yeah.
We're having a heat wave. Oh, there we go. Okay. I like to start this podcast usually with giving my guests a small couple of minutes to introduce themselves, what they do, what's their background, whatever comes to mind. So please let our viewers know what's your story.
Yeah. So I am a therapist. I'm a complementary therapist. That's what I call myself. But I've been working with Reiki, reflexology, naturopathic understandings of working with the body in a natural way for the last 27 years. And it really just started with an interest in using my hands to begin with. There was some magic there. And, I decided to take a Reiki course, and basically it came to me like a lot of people, the start of the journey of learning Reiki is start where you learn Reiki and then other things, interests come to you. I'd basically had a situation where someone had mentioned Reiki to me, and then I saw a book, picked the book up, read the book, and then felt very instinctive to learn it. And at the same time, decided to go and work and learn. Sorry, can I just you'll cut this out, right? Can we just go back a bit? You're not going to cut this out.
I'm very mean. We're not going to cut
Yes, I'm
anything.
just saying it. I'm like, oh God,
this is
why?
this
Like,
is
yeah,
this is not an exam, so
I know.
you don't have to be
Just
pitch perfect.
no, just
People
cut
want
that
to
out.
meet
Can
you.
I start again? Can you just let me start again? Because I'm like, what am I talking about? I know who I am. I know what I do. It's really not that complicated. you know?
Hey, listen, it's not easy to speak up sometimes, and when it's unnatural situation, you don't have done so many podcasts in the past. So basically, it's of course we all need a little time to get used to the medium. And as you said, you work with your hands, you work with your energy, and you're not like so many of my therapists who have one-on-one basically 10 times a day. Well, you sit them in front of a podcast and they keep going for 2 hours without taking a breath.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they do every day.
Mm.
But you work with energies for real and you work it through the hands. And I know from experience, it's sometimes very hard when you work with real frequencies, with real energies, to put this experience into words. That's a bit of odd one, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So the thing is that it is exactly what you're saying. It's a case of having those experiences in your life, and then you then do something with it. So I've always been sensitive to energy all my life since I was very young, and sensitive to people, and then making sense of that. So finding a medium to use to actually bring it into the world. So I guess I use Reiki to do that. When I learned Reiki, it was brought to me in a package that was very westernized. It was very mostly all about hands-on healing. Didn't really learn much about meditation at that point. that came later for me. But to start with, it really was a case of me being very sensitive to energy and then finding something that I could then bring that energy from within and then use it. And that was probably what,
Reiki for you was simply a vessel. You had the energy, you had the feelings, and you were looking for a vase, a vessel, any kind of outside structure where you can put all of this in. So that's
yeah.
basically
And
how you're
ironically,
describing.
we are the vessel. So discovering that I was a vessel for this initially, when I was taught my first class of Reiki, we were taught that it was coming from outside of ourselves and that we were bringing it in. But the difference was that we were having an attunement, and that the difference between Reiki energy and just regular healing, people that do spiritual healing, is that you're not calling in anything. You are a vessel for this energy to come through you, which is an important point. That is the very difference between a Reiki healing and a more spiritual healing, which you would get, say, in a church or something. Um, but for me, those initial classes that I took left a lot of gaps for me. And at the same time, I went and I started yoga classes, which I had a very good teacher who wasn't just teaching yoga just for doing exercise and moving your body, but she was bringing the philosophy of yoga to the class. And it was a very disciplined practice. So she would call us to the class. We weren't allowed to speak to each other when we arrived. We went straight into Shavasana, Shavasana, where you sit on the floor quietly and prepare yourself. Then we would do the postures, and then she would then bring the philosophy at the end of the class. And every week we would learn something different about the where it came from and what we were trying to achieve through this movement, which was to still the mind and be more present, and various cleansing practices, meditation cleansing practices, learning about the nature of the mind through the priest. I don't know what you call them, but not yamas and niyamas, the practice, which was something that I found very useful when I was practicing Reiki. And I felt like there was an element to the teachings that I was receiving initially during my Reiki classes that were missing. I went on to travel to India not many years after that to learn more about meditation because of that experience that I had in my yoga classes. It gave me a taste for it. I wanted to know more. So I ventured off to India. I traveled for a while until I finally found a teacher that I felt was bringing um, a style of meditation that resonated for me. It wasn't the popular meditation classes that you can find in India. Um, India is one of those places where people go there looking for spirituality, and it's a bit like you can find everything and everyone. And there are some people that are authentic, and some people that are just trying to make money from people that are looking and searching. So you have to take your time. And you have to really look within to find without who your teacher is, who resonates with you. Unfortunately, I found someone that was running a meditation center that wasn't big. It didn't have a big name, but he had been practicing all his life and had brought a technique of looking at one kind of the nature of the mind. And I went there and I did the silent retreats, and it really gave me real insight into me, Sharon, what is going on with my thoughts, what that is, just to stop and listen to myself. And through that experience, I then went on to study with that particular teacher, my Reiki master training, so that I could then teach Reiki to others because he integrated that meditation side into the Reiki practice. And that to me was very appealing because I'd come from a background where I was searching for that. So I really had found my teacher, if you like, as they say. And for me, that again wasn't a long, it was a 2 month experience. I didn't just go on a class and learn and then say, hi, I've got the certificate. Now I can teach people. I stayed for 2 months. I would do meditation, silent meditation retreats, 5 days. Then 2 days I would be working with my teachers who were teaching people Reiki and I was assisting them. So I got very kind of hands on experience for a good couple of months, which really helped me integrate the learning that I was receiving. But again, it was a very Western style of Reiki that I was learning. But I like the fact that we
let's
were,
let's let's maybe here make a small pause, and there's a lot of people watching who have a general idea what Reiki is.
mhm,
There may be some people who never heard about Reiki. I don't think so.
yeah,
And it's there are a couple of phenomena around Reiki, right?
yeah,
If you said you've been almost 27 years into the business,
mhm,
well, I've been now. I stopped counting with 30 years for my own
yeah,
mental health.
yeah, yeah,
I stopped any count at 30 years, and so and Reiki being, let's start here. Reiki being unnaturally successful
yeah,
in the spiritual world as a brand, as a business model, as a method, right?
yeah,
Let's take all three of them because they're individual issues, right? So, yes, it's a method. It works million times around the globe, but it's also one of the best developed business models into spirituality. A
yeah,
lot of people make a hell lot of money
yeah,
with Reiki, right? It's unbelievable brand.
yeah,
And yeah, it's a household name. So
yeah,
maybe from your being 27 years in the world of Reiki,
yeah,
give us who are not in the world of Reiki.
yeah,
It's so funny. Just I had a conversation the other day, and I talked about meditation and working with frequencies and so on. Like, oh, so you do Reiki? I'm like, no,
yeah,
it's there's something else out there. I mean, there are other
yeah, I
techniques
know.
that accept Reiki. I
Yeah,
mean, it's unbelievable
yeah,
that the first thing that pops in people's mind when you say, "Oh, energy, oh, you do Reiki," you're like, "No, I don't."
yeah.
So tell us a
Oh,
little bit about the world of Reiki,
okay.
and then we'll first tell us the world of Reiki, and then I'll ask again a couple of questions about the history of Reiki
Yeah,
and the differences. Just Western Reiki, which I think is very important, and we'll come to that.
yeah.
But just a little bit, tell us about the brand
Okay,
of Reiki.
okay. Obviously, Reiki has been around for quite some time, over 100 years now. And the founder, Mikao Sui, I'll go here, he came from Japan. And what happened was that he was looking to develop a spiritual practice. He came from a Shinto background and he was looking to integrate his own spiritual teachings from Shinto and Buddhism, which was very popular at that time in Japan. But Buddhism was quite new, but Shinto obviously had been around a long time. The two were merging, and through his experiences, he wanted to create something that the layman could use, some way of bringing enlightenment to the people without them having to sit around for hours meditating. And he created a system that was basically taken. Initially, it wasn't about hands on healing at all. That was like a side note to it. It was basically a side effect of the actual experience of bringing precepts, which are a very important part of what we developed around Reiki, which is very much missed in Western Reiki. People, techniques and meditations, breathing practices, cleansing practices, mantras and symbols, and attunements, blessings, so the individual receiving could experience what is Reiki. Reiki is translated from Japanese, spiritual energy. It's what this world is, it's what we already are. And through all of what I've just spoken about, we get to experience it through practice. The way that it came to the West was through a lady called Madame Takata, Hawaii Takata, who lived in Hawaii. So initially, Mikao Hasui, who had developed this system in Japan,
Which time approximately?
so
Which
it
time are
was
we?
just during the Second World War, at the end of the Second World, beginning of the Second World War, 19. I don't have the exact date to be fair, but it was about
But
100,
I get it.
1923, because we've just had something like that. We've just had 100 years, I believe. I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that. But it's been over 100 years, and it was around the Second World War time. What happened was Mikao Hasui, he taught many people at that time when he developed it. But he taught someone called Shihiro Hayashi, who was a naval serviceman. And he taught him, who then went to teach to Traditions, but she lived in Hawaii. And when she received the teachings of Reiki, she had many health problems and she experienced profound healings from the experience. And she then went back to Hawaii and started to train. She didn't initially train anyone at a master level, but she started to use the healing effects of Reiki. She had a practice where people would come and receive healing. And eventually she taught 22 masters who then went on to teach. And this is where it happened in the West from Hawaii. It spread out through these 22 masters, and they all took a different flavor of the teachings. And a little bit like Chinese whispers, it went in all different directions. And the personalities and the experiences of those teachers then diluted the Reiki slightly. Initially, Hawaii Takata, when she was bringing this Reiki system, because of suspicion and around Japanese, because there was a war going on, she made some changes to the story. And she initially brought part of what the most important parts, which was the attunement of Reiki. And she did bring the precepts and she did bring um, the hands on healing, but she missed out. She didn't bring so much the meditation side. She took the understanding of energy being like from a kind of more Eastern perspective, and she used the Indian system of energy, the chakras. She put that into it rather than talking about the three diamonds, which is very kind of Asian way of talking about energy from China and Japan and Thailand and these places. So that there wasn't any reason for anyone to suspect that there was any connection with Japan. She also went on to speak about Mikao Sui being Christian and a philosopher and someone who had been to the university in Chicago in America. We now know that perhaps that wasn't true. He definitely wasn't Christian. He was quite well traveled. We have far more information now in recent years because there have been many who've gone back to Japan in the last 20 years and managed to speak to people who have actually come down the lineage from Mikawasui, but where it stayed in Japan. It's been an interesting journey for me because I've been reading and learning and very interested to know the origins of Reiki because it got so diluted through this Western way, through the how it spread through all these masters. Initially, I think they were charging £10,000 to become a Reiki master. That was initially the price. But eventually, that also, I think one of the teachers decided that she wanted to make it more accessible and reduce the price. And there's a lot of controversy, a lot of politics, there's a lot of judgment, but around all of this. But
Who is, is there something like a World Association of Reiki who's holding the name? who's holding the copyrights. It is just came
In
to my mind.
Yeah, in each individual country, there is association ones in America. I'm not sure about Europe or anywhere else, but in England, we have associations. And that in itself has gone on its whole journey back from the 80s. I believe I was told like Princess Diana, the royal family, she started to receive Reiki. I heard this story a few years ago from a teacher that I had, and they didn't know what Reiki was, and they needed to make sure that it was safe. So they set up an association, and it's from there it grown and changed over the years because of that. But still, it doesn't really have you can basically learn Reiki now in a day or three. There are basically three levels to Reiki. And each level, you experience something different. There's a lot of controversy because some people can go and learn Reiki all three levels in a day, or some people can learn the first level and the second level together. And some people will just learn the first one and then they will be told to wait, learn the second one, wait, and learn the third one, wait. There's all different ways that you can learn Reiki, and there are all different aspects to it. And people are very sensitive.
Sorry, when you now say Reiki, you use the word Reiki. So you talk about, if you use the word Reiki, you're always referring to Western Reiki, or that Reiki that incorporated the chakras and incorporated this and incorporated that, or you think, never mind, that the core teaching is universal and you call it Reiki no matter what.
So it's a very complicated question because it depends on
Sorry.
who you're learning from, because everybody has got whoever you have learned from, you have received that knowledge. And because there is no structure, there is no one saying that this is Reiki and this is what it should look like. Each teacher has either added to it or changed it in some way. And this makes, in some ways, this makes people that don't know about Reiki, they don't know. What you don't know, you don't know. And it can be quite dangerous sometimes because people can be vulnerable and they can learn from somebody and then, think that they can learn it to make some money and they're struggling financially. There are people out there that learn Reiki just to learn it to make money from it. But really that's not what it's about. In Japan, the teachings that were given and stayed in Japan, there was an understanding that this is a spiritual technique, a spiritual journey. There's more to it than that. It's not hands-on healing. It's not about creating a service that you then bring to the public, that you then people come to you and you're healing them. You're never healing them. You're holding space for somebody to find see themselves. This is a misunderstanding. You don't go to a healer to be healed. You go to see somebody to hold a space for you to unravel yourself. And if someone hasn't been trained correctly in this way, this is where it becomes dangerous. If people have got certain conditions and they haven't been trained correctly, or they haven't got a lot of money and they go and see somebody that's not properly trained, and they invest their money in this experience because they've been told that it's going to help them. And that person actually can't help them because they don't have the qualification to do that. They don't have the experience to do that. And
But
so,
that's
yes, this is why Reiki can get a bad rep. And there's a lot of misunderstanding of what Reiki is. There are a lot of factors that need to be debunked. I mean,
well, a lot of bad rap is simply because it's so unbelievably successful compared to so many other therapies and spiritual practices. It's just unimaginably successful.
mm,
And I think a lot of people from the outside just don't know why. Yeah,
mm,
that's I think the point, right? Because a lot of people who I never went to a Reiki course. I mean, I worked with energies for a really, really long time, right?
mm,
And kind of know what I'm doing, but I never went to a Reiki course, and why would I? So it's so fascinating why Reiki is so crazy successful, and why every television show is all about Reiki. And this is, an, it's just everywhere is Reiki, 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 Reiki. And you just wonder, what is the source? What is the secret juice? What does it make it so better than all the other techniques out there in terms of profitability and popularity? And
Yeah.
what's the secret, so to say?
I think the marketing perhaps, and the people, the internet, the social media, the people that are,
Yeah, but sorry, but you said it. Every country has its own network, and
yeah,
every teacher is doing its own thing.
yeah,
So we're all looking for conspiracies or the secret man behind the curtain.
no.
Who made the Reiki marketing? Who started this success story? This is something that fascinates me for
Okay.
more than 30 years now.
Wow. So I think it's evolved in its own right. It has its own energy. I think it's just taken.
You won't tell me all those secret
Oh, there is
societies you
no,
have no.
there is no secret. Let me tell you. I think when people say to me, "What is Reiki?" I say, "Come, have a session and
Oh,
experience it, feel it." Yeah, but I can't tell you why. In itself, I think the
Sharon,
one thing
Sharon,
Reiki has taken, it's such a big stand in the world because we need it. In some ways, we need to find the essence of our true self, and that Reiki, that's what I'm interested in. I I've 100 books on Reiki, and some of them all say the same thing, and everyone is bringing a Reiki book out, and I'm bored of it. And then I suddenly, about 5 years ago, found someone who actually went and researched what Reiki was about and actually went to Japan and I'll name him Franz Steen. I just think he's great. And there are some other amazing Reiki teachers out there who have done the same thing and have gone to Japan and, really looked into what Mikao was trying to achieve. I cannot tell you why Reiki has spread like a virus throughout the world. The only thing I may say is that we are at a time now where people are hungry for spirituality, hungry to know themselves. And it's a very easy and accessible way to uh, experience something. And in whatever package it's coming in, perhaps that Reiki has its own intelligence. All Reiki is spiritual energy. We say Reiki, the word Reiki, but what people see it as a packaged like acupuncture, or I do reflexology or cranial sacral therapy. It's just a word. It's not, but what does that word mean? It means spiritual energy. So how it comes to you is perhaps that's what we need to look at. We need to look at what people are needing right now in their life. People are very disillusioned. So perhaps Reiki has taken off in order to spark something within them that actually will lead them to look at themselves, not necessarily what they're actually going in for, if that makes sense. That's what I'm feeling. Because a lot of people that do, I've met many people over these years that have practiced Reiki. Some of them take a course, never do it again. Some of them absolutely love it and go on to do other things. I've done many other healing courses, but I always come back to Reiki because of the experience of what I experienced when I do Reiki for myself and also for others. That makes me want to do it more. The actual experience, I cannot put that into words what that is. You have to experience that to know what that is. And then I think that we can be very judgmental as well. I think we have to show some compassion. The precepts of Reiki are really the most important element of Reiki. And people forget that. They think it's just hands on healing, but there are 5 precepts in Reiki: let go of worry, let go of anger, be grateful, be kind to yourself and others, and be true to your way. This is what Reiki is about. It's about spiritual energy. It's about experiencing it, and it's about bringing it into your life into your everyday life, and we say just for today, but achievable. They're not affirmation, they're laws. They're actual laws. And then if you look at the more traditional Reiki, we look at like techniques where we do cleansing techniques and breathing, just like pranayama, connecting your breath, connecting to your hara, connecting to your sacral plexus, connecting to the universe. And then with the second degree of Reiki, there are mantras and there are symbols. Now, some people look at those symbols and they get all mystical about it and think, oh, the symbols have some real power or energy, but actually they're just training wheels. They're there for us as a bridge to connect to ourselves. The words have energy, everything is energy. And then we drop the symbols and then we become that energy. We become that spiritual experience, right? And then we have, as a side effect of that, we have the hands on healing because the more we experience that and the more we bring it into our lives, we then express it through our hands. And then we are able to hold space. And really, what's happening is if someone comes for a Reiki treatment, they we're like mirrors. We're basically holding the spiritual energy and we're saying, look, you
That's
are
one of the
this
dangers of it.
ready. You are this. I am this, you are this. And I am just reminding you of this. And you can either have it through having a treatment, or you can come on a course and you can have what we call an attunement, a Reiki blessing. And then again, when this happens, it's just a reminder
That
of who you
is
are. Yeah.
That's also one of the great dangers of Reiki, where you get a bit more serious,
Hmm.
because I had a lot of clients who went to Reiki seminar, was probably too quickly, not properly trained, whatever, like a
Okay.
lot of clients.
Oh,
And then they are quite energetically destroyed. And then
oh,
they came to me or somebody else, but a lot of people came to me to help them to, try to get their energetic field back into order, because as you said, if you become a mirror and you're not properly trained
yeah.
and people are sick and have all kind of
Well,
bad energy elements, let's call it like this for the sake of conversation, and you mirror them, well, this can be bloody dangerous, right?
there's, I've heard many stories similar. Okay. And again, it's about the person that they have gone to see, the person who they have trained with, uh, what is happening there. And I don't know anything about those people, so I can't comment on that. I can only tell you what I have experienced, and it is a very gentle, loving, non fearful experience. I will be honest here, I have a lot of mental health in my family. Okay. Psychosis, schizophrenia, and so it's not something that, and I'm very wary of those things. I'm extremely grounded. I don't come to anything without questioning it because I know the dangers that can happen when we're not feeling safe. But I can tell you from that place, that Reiki, it's not the Reiki that is doing that damage. It is perhaps the experiences that they have experienced. It's fear, and it's far more complicated, but we like to blame things, and perhaps we're using Reiki, that to be the situations where Reiki, look, when I was traveling in India, I heard of people doing pranayama and blowing their whole energy circuits out and overdoing it, not having the right teacher. So I hear what you're saying about
I
energy.
I had a lot of patients like that too,
Yeah. It's
especially
important.
also.
Yeah.
uh,
So it's important to have the right teacher. How we create a system where there are no boundaries. Right now, there are no boundaries around what Reiki looks like, how it is taught. There's a lot of, yeah, there's a lot of people out there just, like I said, doing it yeah, for a few days. They get all levels of Reiki and then they go out and they're a Reiki expert. But I think we have that in all fields. It's not just Reiki. This is an epidemic of a problem in a lot of unless we have,
Reiki is specific.
okay.
It is specific.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, I mean, I'm not against Reiki or anything. I
Yeah.
don't say anything bad about Reiki like you're doing.
Yeah.
You took your time, you studied it, you developed, you prepared. It's absolutely nothing against the world against Reiki,
Yeah.
right?
No. Yeah.
The thing is when you've seen too many weekend seminars where people, just make cash and make you a master or whatever they call you after the end of the weekend, and you're utterly not prepared, and you're ending up on my table, and I see what damage has been done. And you can't blame Reiki for it. You're right. You can blame the individual teacher or the individual person thinking that you're a master after one weekend. What's wrong with you in the first place? I mean,
Yeah.
that should be the question number one.
Yeah.
How can you call yourself after a weekend or like two sessions any kind of healer or master or whatnot? I mean,
Exactly.
it's ridiculous if you think
Yeah.
if you,
Yeah.
but that's how people are. They get the diploma in their hand, and they think, all right. I mean, that's how
Yeah. And I take great responsibility with my students, and I do not rush the process. I didn't rush the process myself. I took my time. And even when I learned to be a teacher of Reiki, I did not go out into the world and start doing it as my business. It took me, wow, it took me 20 years before I took it on board and said, right, okay, I'm now ready to teach people how to do this because I needed some time and experience. Just because the word master is given to you doesn't mean you're a master. Do you know what I mean? It's a bit of an ego trip, perhaps. But I then now say to my students, if you want to go ahead and and learn to teach and do the master level, and you don't want to wait a good enough time, which is what I feel people should take to integrate, then go find another teacher. It doesn't, I've had many teachers over the years. I think it's important to learn from different teachers as well and get different perspectives. But I think there is a great responsibility to educate the public in where to find therapists and what that looks like. And yes, it's important to have associations to keep people safe. That's why we have them. And that people should know where to go if they're looking for the right kind of therapist. This is very important to avoid all of what you've just talked about, right? So I recently, someone asked me for to see who a hypnotherapist. Right. Okay. Who is the best society in this country that regulates hypnotherapy? Find out who that is, then go there and then find your therapist through them because we need regulation. I mean, in a business world, don't we? So this is a very important point that you're making.
such an interesting things coming out because in one way we agree and we want spirituality to be far away from business, and we're calling it spiritual because it's not a medical procedure, because it's not scientifically proven or scientifically structured, because once we do, it would be anyway a complete different ball game and be taught in universities, and it would be with very very strict rules.
Yeah.
So, and we work with energies that do not exist in scientific terms
Yeah.
in the first place. And we move chakras are not scientifically proven by the end of the day
Mm.
fully. There's some indications, but it's just not strong enough, not good enough for making it real stick.
Yeah.
So in one way, we want things to be intuitive, and we accept a certain amount of magic. So
Very.
it's things we cannot explain. And in the other hand, we want to press it into, for good reasons, and I'm with you absolutely, into associations and business, as you said, right? To it always will be a bit of odd thing, spirituality and religion as well. It always will be odd and awkward
Yeah.
in.
And then
But
people,
let's move on.
yeah, people are very sensitive about it. They get very touchy about it. I never take it personally. It's not for me to do that. It's not personal to me. Reiki for myself and then share it with others because I have had a positive experience. But for someone to come to me and tell me about these really awful experiences that they may have had through learning Reiki or receiving Reiki, that's not personal. I don't, that's some us. And I think we have to remember that we don't own it. It doesn't belong to us. None of it does. And we have to take personal
Yeah,
responsibility for it.
yes.
Yeah.
That would be the idea, but let's finish this chapter. I'm just telling you, I had a lot of people with bad energies, and yes, Reiki was a big portion, but also a lot of people who do magic, white magic, black
But this
magic.
is not
I
Reiki.
had a lot of,
This is not Reiki.
I had, no, no, I'm just
And
saying,
it gets
I had a lot of people on
big.
my,
Yeah. It gets mixed up with it. It gets,
no, no, but
yeah,
I'm saying patients who had destroyed energy fields,
right.
right?
Yeah, I get,
So,
yeah,
Reiki is not the only group. There are a lot of groups who over and over I've seen come to me with destroyed energy fields
yeah,
and have been overusing their energy system in either good or bad, or not taking care. So
sure.
it's not just Reiki. It's like a lot of places where you can get stuck. But
Okay.
let's move on
Okay.
let's move on, because you said another interesting question. Because the question I'm asking is, and we're not going to talk about Reiki anymore, but we start the question with Reiki and then we'll move a little bit somewhere else.
Okay.
Do you think, without answering the question, it's just staying in the void, do you think that if the original teaching, the original Japanese teaching, and if he would have had 10 uh, Reiki masters from the original source and they would have traveled to the West, right? Would it have spread the way it did? Would it have been as popular as it did if it would have stayed true to the course? And now let's a little bit look at yoga, because there we have exact the same thing.
Yeah.
It's a replica, right?
Yeah.
In a certain intellectual way, we have a replica of Reiki.
Yeah.
We have a original yoga, which is a full-blown philosophy.
Yeah.
It's a philosophy, and a microscopic element of the yoga way is exercises and practices and postures. It's a microscope of the universe of yoga,
Yeah.
right? And by no means neither the center, neither close to the center,
Yeah.
it's outside the building, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if we talk honestly, sexuality is damn more closer to the center of yoga
Yeah.
than the postures would ever be, right?
Yeah.
And they are not in the center. They are not in the center,
Yeah.
and a mile closer.
Yeah.
So I'm asking you, talk a bit about yoga and how it came so popular in the West and how it's been ignored, its true meaning. And again, how did it happen? And what are we learning from the fact that once you take away the whole building and just take those little practical things like hands-on or like postures,
Mm.
it poofs like a superstar
Yeah.
into the Western world, and just don't mention that there's actually a whole world. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting how you've seen that parallel. And in my mind, I'm seeing like a similar kind of time frame because when Reiki came to the West, I think yoga also became very popular too, as you said. And it was, it had good intention. People were hungry for spirituality. I think there's a part of the Western belief system lack some spirituality that you can find more in Eastern philosophies. And initially, people were perhaps hungry for that. And therefore, there was a market for it. But as people were learning, they it became very superficial because it takes work. Like the same doing the exercises is quite actually, some people may not find yoga postures easy to do, right? You need to take the time and you need to stretch. And yes, it's body beautiful, but it's much harder to sit with yourself in meditation and look at yourself, which is part of what it's asking you to do. Yoga is just a preparation, right? For you to then sit with yourself because it opens up the channels and it opens up what we call nadis in the body. And there's a whole cleansing process of our inner organs. I mean, all the postures are leading to us. I understand that yoga means yoke or to make whole. Yeah. This is just the preparatory practice, which is easier than sitting with yourself and looking at yourself and taking on responsibility for yourself. So some of the more harder aspects of yoga perhaps just got dropped along the way. And we tend to look outside of ourselves. It's much easier to just to not look within, which is what it's asking us to do, is to look within, whether it's Reiki or yoga. It's asking us to look within into our inner world. And we have a lot more drive to look outside of ourselves because that's what we're seeing when we wake up in the morning. So I think it's just we live in a very fast McDonald type society. People want quick. They want quick results. They want to be enlightened immediately through whatever the marketing is that they're being fed. And it is marketing, isn't it? It's about how can we make money from this? How can we oh look, there's this group of people, they're growing, they're really interested in this. How can we take it and make it financially successful? Which is far from what it's about, perhaps. And that's where it all gets dissected and
I
abused.
yoga even goes further, I think, on so many levels. And most probably we could spend 7 hours now talking about yoga
Yeah.
because it really goes so much further
Okay.
than that. Working hours and hours very hard to make a picture perfect pose
Mhm.
is such a Western thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
To try that hard to bend that far and
Mhm.
stretch the toes and that this is such a Western thing of
Yeah.
being so overachievers and perfect. And while you're telling yourself that you're theoretically supposed to do something spiritual, theoretically you do something to become a better or more compassionate person, whatever. But all you do is you practice most of the time for a lot of people.
Mhm.
Not all of them, I know,
Yeah.
but for a huge chunk of people, it's it's more like a sport thing or like like it's really very far away from its spiritual element.
Yeah.
It's cut off from the spiritual element,
Yeah.
and I think that's a huge reason why it became so horribly popular because it's a deflection. Again,
Mhm.
it's fog. It's a mirror room full of mirrors. You think or you want to think that you do something for your spirit, but all you do is just work endlessly on a perfect posture,
Mhm.
which will bring you absolutely nothing
Yeah.
for the spirit in most of the times.
Yeah.
In most of the
There are
that,
exceptions.
that that's
Yeah.
that was a great. I mean, I'm lucky to have a fascinating yoga teacher, so I'm really lucky. And
Mm.
I'm incredibly lucky, right? So, and you've been lucky. So, we this here's is the group of the lucky ones. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I guess we've been open to look for it. And that comes us to our last question very quickly because we are 15 minutes already done. So that went like this.
Mhm.
Let's just a couple more minutes. And although we could probably speak for a long time about it. And yes, we haven't talked about as you as a therapist, but I think people get an idea. We haven't talked about you as a teacher, but again, I think people got an idea. So I think then the standard questions that would come next somehow were explained along the way. People got to know you, how you work, how's your approach. And so I think whoever is near London looking
Mhm.
for a Reiki teacher or want to learn more about Reiki, I think they have understood who you are. And so that's basically that we've covered.
Mhm.
So let's give us a last couple of 4 or 5 minutes talking about the phenomena of finding a guru, right? Finding a teacher, finding a fellow traveler. These last ideas, because you talked about going for India and being lucky to have found. Is it openness? Is it just let's talk a couple of last minutes? But as you can say whatever you want. Last 5 minutes as yours to choose from to end this fascinating positive message
Mhm.
on how to find.
I've had many teachers in my life, and I think it's really whatever resonates with you. Like sometimes I feel. like you attract what you need at that time. And that does sound a bit wishy-washy. If you are looking for something tangible, I feel that everything that's ever happened to me in my life has been very organic. I haven't specifically known exactly what it needs to look like. I have an idea, but then I just open myself up to possibility. And when the right person stands before you and you hear them speak, you feel something within you and you're like, yeah, you're the one. You know what you're talking about. This makes sense. And sometimes it comes from experience of maybe meeting people that just don't resonate, and you may have been attracted to something. There are a lot of teachers I've had that perhaps I went to and thought at the time, oh, yeah, I really want to learn this. This looks good. And then it's just turned out to be not what I was looking for. But that is a teaching too. We have to be honest with ourselves. I mean, it's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes it's going to look ugly, and sometimes we need to have that experience, and that's okay too. I think, again, I've said this before, we have to take responsibility. We have to be honest with ourselves, and we need to listen more deeply to our inner voice, our inner needs, what's coming up, and follow that, really. Follow that. Yeah.
You basically you say the universe will provide once you're open, once you're honest, and the teachers will come along
Yeah.
once you're open. And I think it's a beautiful ending, and it's a good advice to everybody. Stay open, stay on the lookout, and when it comes your way, maybe be ready to accept it.
And
Thank you.
yeah. Like, can I just say, and keep safe? Go to the right organizations that can keep you, make sure that you're finding the right people that are fully qualified and have the experience that you need to support you. Yeah.
I, I should say thank you, but I want to add something. I'm so sorry if I'm ruining the last moment.
No.
That because I'm sensitive on the subject. Yes, I love organizations, and I'm with you 1,000%.
Mm,
But also look open, right? Once you have your real like web page out there and you say what you do, or you make some YouTube clips, or you make open days maybe where everybody's welcome. Look for openness, right?
yeah.
And you were already on a good path. All the secrecy stuff, all the stuff that's behind closed doors, that's the stuff we should be wary about, right?
Yeah.
There should be nothing about spirituality. There should be nothing secret about these energies. This is all nonsense, bullshit, right?
Yeah.
This is love. It's a sharing. It's a universal thing. And so societies are great. Organizations, thank you for saying that. Have to add, just looking for openness. If people do it under daylight, right in front of everybody, then I'm sure you have already a good path of being safe. That's,
Yeah.
I may add.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Totally.
You're Sharon, and
Very much.
sorry for ruining the last
No,
minute.
it's fine. It's fine. We all have a voice. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you.